Chris Carter here to answer your calls at 866-594-4150. 866-594-4150. We've got some callers all ready to go. Anything breaking or super important that you have
Cars
to start
are breaking.
Yeah, the things are breaking. That's why people are calling us.
That's true.
I got plenty breaking in my mind, but I don't think anybody wants to hear about it. They just want us to do a professional car talk show, or at least a semi-professional one.
Semi, I would say. Yeah.
Semi-professional with a little bit of fun.
I think so.
Yeah.
I'll try. I'll do my best.
All right.
866-594-4150. Let's talk to Dean. Let's get right out of the chute and talk to Dean. You're on the Under the Hood Show. What can we do for you?
Hey, guys. How you guys doing?
Fantastic.
Not bad.
Great. I've got a couple questions on my 23 Roush F-150 I bought last year.
How have you been enjoying it so far?
I love the truck.
And I'm trying to remember, did you buy the one with the engine upgrades also, or did you get the one with just the cosmetic, kind of the Roush-looking stuff?
Mainly that, and then the exhaust system has worked on a little bit. But the supercharger I've let go for now. That might be something in the future, though. But
Well, that's a fun-looking truck. I know that we've had an opportunity to buy a couple of those that got damaged in transport, so I was studying the specs on a wrecked one. That's the only reason I knew a little bit about them. So.
Yep. No, Chris saw it last year. I had it out there.
Yeah. That's a good looking
That's
truck.
right, when you were here.
Yep.
That's right, when you visited the studios. Well, what's your question, Dean?
Well, I've got two of them here. As you know, it's a 5.0 with a flex fuel, and I run E85 in it all the time. I'm a corn farmer. And I just wondered, I've heard you talk about in the past about some engines having an issue with building up carbon on the underside of the valves. By running E85, is that almost going to eliminate that?
All right, so
Conflating a few different things that we have happen here with like the turbocharged ones and the...
but this is a 5.0.
Yeah, I know what I mean. This is a Coyote.
So here's the thing: if
A
you've got
super Coyote.
with the 5.0, you don't. Yes, that'll keep it cleaner, but you don't have to worry near as much with that as you do with a EcoBoost, a 3.5, a 2.7, that type of thing. But with those engines, you no longer have to worry about it with the EcoBoost because they have added a pre-injector. Instead of just the direct injector in the cylinder, there's another injector that sprays fuel on the backside of the valve, and the oxygen sensor has to look at that and compensate for it. But the reason for that is to clean the valve. It keeps the valves clean and eliminates that problem. And GM's looking at some of that stuff as well, because all the direct injections engines have had this issue. And what happens is as the valve opens and the fuel is injected, and then the fuel burns, but there's a little bit of overlap in the valve. So as the piston's moving the other direction, or if it's in a negative spot where it's not quite going down but not going up again, and that intake valve isn't 100% closed, well, you're going to get carbon on the back of it because there's some gases that are in that cylinder that will wind up back in that intake area. Now, they'll be pulled back down in the engine and burned, so that's fine, but that residue will stick on the back of that valve and eventually get so thick it can be a 1/4 inch, 3/8 inch thick on the back of it.
Oh wow!
And it hardens up to where it's like something petrified from dinosaur age. So you're not gonna get it off of there with a cleaning if you wait too long. Now, if you used a Justice Brothers emissions kit and cleaned it often, you'll get it off of there. But it's kind of like your teeth. If you clean them, brush and floss regularly, you will keep that plaque down, but it'll still get there enough where you need the professional cleaning. Same way with the car if you let it go too long. But with the 5.0, you're really doing the best you can as far as keeping them clean in between. But I would still recommend on that engine probably a full, like a Justice Brothers emission system cleaning on about a yearly basis. If you're going to put, let's say, 20,000 miles a year on, 15 to 20,000 miles, that'll really help cut that down. And then I think that engine through its life will stay clean inside.
Okay. And the other question I have is, I finally got it broke in last week. I ran it the full 5,000 miles on the break-in oil.
Okay.
And I changed the oil, and then I went out on a lonely piece of highway and kind of let her stretch her legs.
Oh.
And I found out she is speed limited.
Of course. That's
Now.
due mainly to the tires.
They give you
Okay,
98
that's
miles an
something-
hour, or they give you 103? What did they give you?
101.
Don't answer that question, Dean.
Oh, he had to answer that
No,
question.
no, that's
Well, should we have played
theoretically.
should we have played Prices Right, high or low?
No, we shouldn't say anything like it. We should pretend we never do that.
Mine's 98.
No, that was it. It was just 101, and it's not that big a deal. But I just thought, is that something that can be turned off? And if it is, should I wait until the warranty is off on it?
No, it can be turned off,
This is a public
and
conversation.
it has to be done with a tuner, like an aftermarket tuner.
You're on the radio, Dean. You know that, right?
I don't
I
know.
know.
I don't know if the warranty will matter. That it's mainly for performance, but what you've got to look out for is sometimes, depending on the fine print in that warranty, no matter what you alter in that computer, if it alters performance of the vehicle, which they would consider that a performance thing, it will affect your warranty. If let's say they find the problem is with a cylinder that's damaged from a mixture, running too lean, running too rich, then they could easily say the performance was altered, the tune was altered in this engine.
Now
and
that
we're not gonna cover
I'm
it.
just going to, in realistic, the times we've seen that happen and heard that happen, had reports that happen, are typically with diesel engines.
That's the only thing I've seen it for, except for like Subarus and
Yes.
Honda Civics
Yep,
that are altered with
I was
gas
just thinking, I was on
engines.
the Ford truck plane, but yeah, you
Yeah.
hit it right on the head, Russ, because they can tell. They've got date and timestamps in those computers now of when something was changed, and if they see a cylinder melted down or whatever, and then they saw a change in the computer, there would be a conversation. Now, in your realism, taking off of that truck it's a 10-speed automatic probably. It's still
Yep.
probably only turning 3,000, 3,500 RPMs at that speed, right? You probably checked.
Yeah, well, I didn't check that so much, but I know at 60, it's hardly running about 1,300.
Yeah, they got them legged out so good
So-
with the transmissions that you're not
Yeah.
putting as much strain on that truck as you would have.
2600 then at 120 miles an hour.
Yeah, with a 10-speed automatic, but it's things that people need to know about.
Do they?
Yeah,
Okay.
Dean does.
Not on
Oh,
the
yeah,
radio, he doesn't.
Well, it just didn't make sense to me. My old blue could outrun new blue, and that just didn't seem right.
Well, I do know the Camaro will do 208 miles an hour before it's maxed out on the hoist. I have no idea what it'll do on the ground, but yeah, I mean that's one way to figure it out. You got the wheels off the ground and you've got the traction control off. Hold her to the floor in high gear and see where it goes. I was curious.
You get shaken, that'd be bad.
Uh-huh.
It's smooth.
If another thing too is that you see a lot of these pursuit vehicles now are pickups, Silverados and F-150s.
Yeah, and if you take a peek under them, they don't come with catalytic converters or evap systems.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Take a look. If you're buying an old service vehicle like that, a lot of them do not have them, and they are exempt.
Well, we'll have
But
to
are
check that
they
out on the-
exempt when the public buys them?
Yeah, we'll have to check that out on the newer ones because I know like our sheriff's department has switched over to a lot of Ram trucks and Silverado trucks. They're doing like crew cab pickups. It makes a lot more sense if they can get them set up that way. But I just wonder. My question I was sneaking up on. I wonder if what their limit is in the computer.
Good question. Yeah.
They're not limited.
I would think not.
Yeah, no, and we just had an old police car or a Suburban up at our place the other day, and he said, "There's somebody cut the converters off." I said, "Did they cut them off, or are they just not on there?" And it's a clean pipe front to back with the muffler and the resonator, and under the hood it says exempt.
How new a one was that one?
That was a 13.
Okay,
Tahoe.
we'll have to do a little more investigation on that subject.
Well, Dean, you can expect a knock on your door anytime now, so good luck with that. Thanks very much for the call. 866-594-4150. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you on the End of the Hood Show.
Find out how you can participate in the show by visiting underthehoodshow.com.
866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us here at the Under the Hood Show. Let's go to Texas and talk to Sean. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Sean, what can we do for you?
Yes, thanks. I've called in before about this issue, but I need some more information to try to fix it. But I have an '06 Ram 1500, and whenever I, turn it on, take off, it basically feels like in second gear, and just really bogs down. I've done a little bit of testing on it, And if I turn it off and I turn it back on to the on position without starting it several times, eventually it'll work. I'll be able to put it in drive and it just runs perfectly fine. But most of the time it doesn't do that, especially if it gets warmed up and stuff. I know you guys gave me some answers on it, but I'm trying to figure out, what do I need to do? How do I fix this thing?
Oh,
Kind of annoying.
well, that's the thing. To fix it, you're going to have to have a scanner on it, and you're going to have to read and see what's going on. See if you're missing. Yeah, while it's doing it, see if you're missing something. Just what's going on. I mean, it could be something to do with the electronic throttle body on it. We've had a number of these that will set pending codes in the computer. They'll act up, and then once you shut the key off and turn it back on and restart it, it'll work. You won't have that problem anymore. One of our guys that works for us just had this problem with a Challenger, and it was just acting up. You'd shut it off, restart it, and it would go. But he tried to take off from a stop sign, and sometimes it would just kind of sit there and fall on its face, wouldn't go anywhere. And it was the throttle body. Didn't dig into it real deep before that, but it turned out what it was. We see a lot of issues with electronic throttle bodies that cause this type of thing. Not like a lot of issues with the throttle bodies, period, but just a lot of this type of issue when there is a throttle body problem.
Okay. Now it won't. Whenever you're driving it, when it does this, it just feels like you could step on the gas. It just doesn't want to go.
Mm-hmm.
But it also won't shift out of overdrive. Overdrive's not functioning correctly either.
You mean
even if you press the button, it doesn't do anything.
Won't go into overdrive or kick down out of overdrive?
Well, let's see. How does that work? I guess
it shifts up to get into gear, and then if you step on it, it should shift down. Or is it not getting into gear?
It's not getting into gear.
Okay, not getting into gear.
Going on.
Well, if it's reading, if the throttle position sensor inside of that electronic throttle body is not reading correctly, then it would think it's not at the right position to shift into gear.
Oh, okay. So that would still be the issue. Okay.
Could be. Yeah, it's one of the possibilities of what's going on with it for sure.
Right. Is there a possibility that something would be going on with the solenoid pack?
Oh yeah.
I've heard lots of people replace those too.
Yeah, that you could definitely have an issue with those. That's something else that's a big concern that we work with on those when they won't shift. We do a lot of transmissions repairs where we find solenoids that are just not functioning correctly, either electrically or mechanically.
Well, once again, though, if you have the problem is repeatable and it's happening all the time, Russ, if that was at your shop and you knew it would do it every time, you can hook up to it and see what's going on.
Right.
And then you wouldn't have to you don't have to start just buying parts and guessing, but you're going to have to spend some money for somebody that knows how to analyze that data, or else you could be wasting.
Okay.
You get into buying new solenoid packs and valve bodies. You're spending multiple hundreds, if not thousands, on certain transmissions. I don't know exactly, but
and does it work?
Yeah.
Will it fix it?
Yeah. So that's why I think at that point you'd be better off, if you know it can be replicated, getting it to a good independent shop that can keep their mind expanded to all the possibilities of throttle valve, transmission solenoids, and kind of look at all of it, as long as it can be repeated. If it can't be repeated and it does it intermittently, you're on a ghost chase and you're probably going to spend a lot of money and then still have a problem. That's what makes us nervous.
I gotcha. Okay. Yeah, we're kind of in an area where we don't have a lot of shops around us. I have to drive almost an hour to get to a shop. And so I was just thinking, most of the repairs I do myself, and I was thinking, man, if it's something I can figure out and just take care of, that'd be awesome. But
you might be, if you're a handy guy and you're willing to learn, you might be well advised to buy a decent scanner in some cases. And so that you could watch YouTube videos and kind of learn how to do some of that reading, as long as you got a repetitive problem.
That live data, this type of issue, what type of scanner are we looking at with that?
It's something a little bigger than that Bluetooth thing you have, Chris. You're looking at probably $1,000 scanner to really get in there. What city are you in down there?
We're in Monaghan, just outside of about 45 minutes outside of Odessa.
Yeah, I don't know anybody there.
That would have been.
I know people in different areas in the middle of nowhere there that I could maybe send you to, but not there. So, you're way out there.
Yeah, we're way out here. But
Midland, you're going to be a haul to get to a shop.
Yeah, most of the time I can do pretty much anything that needs to be done, but this one just kind of throws me because I don't know where to even begin, Most of the time I get in it, if I first get in the morning and I take off, I'm like, oh, great, it's going to be good, not a problem. As soon as I shut it off, turn it back on, there you go. It just gives me problems. So,
Sean, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. That is, but if it's going to do it, this is good if it does it more now, right? Because you can track it.
He might have to make that effort to get it to someone or learn himself with where he lives. But if it's regular, they can watch it happen.
I wonder what tuition at Universal Technical Institute is. Is it worth it for me to take like a 1 year just to learn enough to solve my own problems?
Yes, you can do that at UTI. It is available. You don't have to go the full time, but you got to remember you're not graduating unless you go to the full term, and their classes aren't like forever.
Right.
A couple years is going to get you what you need to get.
Yeah.
But if you wanted to go one semester, no, they start in order.
yeah, exactly.
They're going to teach you. But if you're a little more skilled, I would probably say if I wanted to call them up and say, I've been working in a shop for the last 10 years and I'm trained in this, where can I start to get a little more education? I would have to ask John to be 100% sure, but I bet you could jump in and into a little higher class. What they want to avoid, though, is they don't want to put somebody who knows nothing about, let's say, transmissions into a class that's advanced on it, because you don't want to be asking the instructor every 5 minutes, oh, what does a pump do?
I'm going to call him every morning. What are you going to talk about today? All right, I'm going back to bed.
Yeah. UTI is just a great resource for education.
The only problem with that scenario is you have to wake up.
Right, to call him.
Yeah.
Just, can't you text me the night before? 866-5, just like I did high school. 866-594-4150.
You didn't have text then.
Let's talk. Yeah, I just didn't go. Let's talk to Jim. You're on the End of the Hood Show. Jim, what can we do for you?
I got a 21 Ram with 5.7 Hemi in it. I've been running the E15 in it, and somebody said I should probably check and find out if I should be running that or stick with the E10 or just go with regular. What's the best thing to run in that?
E15 and E10 are certified to run in any vehicle from 2001 on up. They have thoroughly tested it. And when I say thoroughly tested it, they had to meet the EPA, their regulations on testing of a motor vehicle fuel. So whatever you run it in, you're just fine. And you could, if you got out specialized equipment to test the vehicle, you're going to see very little difference between 0, 10, and 15. There's just not a lot there because all fuels have some kind of additive in them, even if they're not ethanol blended. So if you're running a standard fuel, it's got enough additives in it, it's going to take the place of the 10 or the 15. So you shouldn't be seeing any kind of difference. If you are, there's something wrong with your car that needs to be adjusted as far as tuning, which will help you get better fuel economy and overall.
You should use that. You should use that with zero. Use it with zero hesitation.
Yeah.
Okay. I just had somebody tell me about it that had me, kind of watch out and make sure. So I've been running the E10, and they said, well, you probably have that checked. I used to run premium until that got too expensive, but.
There's almost no cars that come into our shop that when I test them for some reason, if I'm working on them and I suspect that maybe they filled up with E85 or something, there's almost no cars that have less than E10 in them. They're either 10 or 15.
Even if they're using...
No matter what.
Right.
And they have no clue what they're driving with or what they're putting in it. They're just driving it. But I test it because I'm like, hey, I got some weird readings here. What's going on? Did they put E85 in this? And that happens now and then.
And the person that told you is probably well-intended to try to help you, but I'm going to guess that they have not taken the time to truly get educated on the subject. They're just going off of what they've heard on the street over the years.
And if they're putting fuel in that just says 88 on the pump, but they think it's not ethanol, that's E15. That's like the secret code for 15, and that's being used nationally around the country, especially in the summer. Some places have waivers for the summer, but the wintertime you'll see it.
Jim, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. 866-594-4150. You're listening to the Under the Hood Show.
Some are born with a silver spoon in their mouth. For these guys, it was a torque wrench and a multimeter. This is Under the Hood.
866-594-4150. Don't forget you can watch our show on our YouTube channel. And if you subscribe to the YouTube channel and join the Hoodie Fan Club at UnderTheHoodShow.com, you could win a hoodie.
Like David Segovia from Longview, Texas.
Congratulations.
Best barbecue they were in Texas Monthly not too long ago.
Okay.
Sunbird Barbecue there in Longview.
Mm-hmm.
That is always a place when we hear Longview, Texas, we know that Russ is paying attention.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's like the second winner, I think. We've had maybe third in all our years doing the hoodie giveaway. But
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Do they ship? Do they?
I don't know if they ship or not, but
you want to taste? You want to know about it?
Yeah.
I've looked at their Facebook posts. They've got people lined up like down the street. They're open like 11 to 4 Wednesday through Saturday, and they've got it's like almost like an ad. But I've just been watching on Facebook. But looking at the guy that works with them down there, their partners, he's just like this Facebook culinary genius. He takes just the right pictures and puts them. Their Facebook thing is for a tiny little shop. They got this huge. But the food, I just want to eat. I look and I see all these colors and all this barbecue, and I'm like, to die for.
Yeah,
Man.
the one restaurant we were taking a picture of food that camera eats first.
Yep,
Is what the person said.
Camera eats
That's
first.
a good one. Yeah, that's funny.
Nom, 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 nom.
Thanks to Universal Technical Institute.
UTI.edu. We just talked about them just a minute ago in the show.
866-594-4150. Let's talk to Pete. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Pete, what can we do for you?
Yeah, I've got a 2015 Jeep Grand Cherokee. Got about 120,000 miles on it. I've had it just under a couple years. Never had any issues with it at all, but I've noticed here in the last 2 to 3 weeks, especially in the morning or when the vehicle is sat for a while, that on the push button start, there's like a momentary hesitation before the car actually will end up starting. And I'm trying to be proactive with it before it doesn't start. But I had a mechanic. He mentioned potential that I might need to look at the battery. He came out and he had his little gadgets and he checked it, but the battery looks a little low. It wouldn't hurt to get a new one. So I went out and got a new one, still doing it. So I'm still a little bit at a loss as to what it could be, but just wondering what you guys your thoughts on that.
Well, my first thought is it sounds perfectly normal to me.
That's what I was going to say, Russ, too. Is this? I wrote down in my brain, Freudianly thought Grand Cherokee. What kind of Jeep is it?
Yeah, it's a Grand Cherokee.
Okay, I didn't know if you'd said that or if I just my brain's going in 16 directions. Okay, all right. Thank you for proving my
you're there.
my brain issue.
The push button start is just like the remote start. You're pushing the button and it's sending a signal through the body control module to the engine control and hitting the starter relay and starting the vehicle up. And it takes just a second for it to do that. A number of cars have about a half-second delay. You push the button and your finger is off it before it's starting. If some cars, if you push the button, as soon as it makes contact, it's cranking over. But a lot of cars, you push it and let go, and then in about a half seconds later, it's turned on the power, the fuel pump's powered up, and it's fired the vehicle, and it's going. It's built into the system to have a slight delay. That's why some of the newer cars now, like Chris's car, as you walk up to it, if you walk up to a new Silverado and open the door, you'll hear the fuel pump turn on before you hit the button. And they're doing that to prime it, because with the key, as you're turning the key, you get to the on position. It's now priming the fuel pump between on and start, and there's about a half-second delay between the on click and the start position on a vehicle. And then there's still even a tiny little delay. If you pay attention real close, if you turn it to start as fast as you can, it may be just a split-second delay before it starts cranking.
I would
That's pretty
recommend
normal.
that you go out and go to a car lot and find another one, and maybe two of them, and just make sure that what you're describing to us, that we're assuming
same.
that it's not abnormal compared to the other two.
But here's one of the things that I've noticed. Like, if I'm out running errands, in and out of the car a lot, it fires right up. But like, if I go to work, I'll work for 10 hours and I'll come out, or if I let the car sit overnight, come out in the morning, there's just that little bit of a hiccup. Like, it doesn't start nearly as clean as it does when I'm. Yeah.
I got to come back. So Russ and I both made the assumption that you were talking about an electronic delay from the push of the button to before the engine started actually moving,
Cranking.
turning.
That's
so
normal.
are you saying that when you push the button, it turns over and cranks, but just does not fire right away? Like, you don't get fire in the hole right away?
Yeah, it's kind of like I said, it's just typically it's a but this time it's like it's like
that's a whole different situation.
Yep,
we both assumed that you were talking about a delay upon pushing the button, because it's not like, just
the
for anybody
crank
else.
delay is normal.
Yeah, just for anybody else listening, it's not like a joy buzzer in your hand when you touch it. It goes,
Right.
You know, there's some circuitry it has to go through. Well, the old joy buzzers used to put in your hand and you'd shake something. You know, it was a
But this problem,
zapper.
same thing. I mean, it's 10-year-old
You
vehicle.
could have something going on here, just a little bit, minor.
Yeah, it's likely got a fuel pressurization issue.
Okay.
Where it's not holding its prime. You got a fuel pump that's weak, it's bleeding back down to the tank, it's got to reprime itself as it cranks. And there's no way to turn the key on to test it before you crank it like you could with a car with a key switch. You need to put a fuel pressure gauge on it to find that out. But once it starts, then you're fine. You can crank it all day long.
In this case, would you work on solving it right away, or if it's just intermittent, it happens once in a while?
You can get a very long crank, like a 5 or 8 second crank when you've got a fuel pump going out, and that can be very discerning.
In Pete's case, he doesn't have that. Just once in a while after the.
But he said he's trying to be proactive,
right?
And he doesn't want to have a future problem.
You don't want a future problem. You need to check the fuel pressure now and find out, is it the pump or is it an injector that's leaking?
And how many miles are on
what
this
a roller coaster for Pete on this call.
How many miles on the Grand Cherokee?
It's got like 120, 122, I think it was. Here's another thing I was going to mention. It is an E85. It has that capability, and with the prices of the fuel recently, I've been using a lot of E85. Now, I brought that up with a mechanic at a place the other day, and he's like, maybe you might want to think about running a little bit better of a grade of gas for a while. I don't know if that's something that could potentially cause issues, but I know I have been putting a lot of E85.
Here's the thing. There is no better grade of gas than 85.
As far as the quality of the fuel.
But that's only going to be about 55% ethanol. 100% is about the best grade you can get because it's clean and it's very high octane. Now, the engine is not designed to strictly run on that blend of fuel. It's a flex fuel, so it's made that it can work on anything. But to get optimum performance, I mean, if you look at an Indy car, NASCAR, those engines that are designed to run only on a certain type of fuel, that run on like a 90%, when you're looking at that or even more, they run great. But if you've got a flex fuel car and it's designed to run on everything, it needs to adjust. And the computers do not adjust well on some of these because they have gone to really poor sensing. They used to have a real sensor that would look at the fuel flow, estimate the fuel that was in it, the content, alcohol content, and adjust. Well, now they look to see, has there been a major change in the fuel level since the car was started? Meaning it knows that somebody's refueled it. And if there is, the oxygen sensor takes a reading and adjusts. If that vehicle has not run down low, and we tell people if you're changing grades of fuel, run it down to where it's less than a quarter tank, fill it completely with whatever you're going to run in it, and run it until you get down low so that that computer knows to take a sample and readjust. Otherwise, you're going to get these hard starts. You're going to get poor fuel mileage. It could run poorly down the road.
I was just going to say, I experienced the same thing in my Silverado truck when I would run.
And we had to reset it.
When I run my ethanol blended fuels, I would get a longer start by a little bit. And
you have to, and to fix that, you'd have to run it down like to a quarter tank and then fill it all the way up.
But I was never concerned about it.
Yeah. But it should not hesitate if it's adjusted right. And you may have to have it cleared out with a scanner. But we would suggest don't run 85 in it. 85 is cheaper, but it's not so cheap that you're saving money for your cost per mile compared to running an E30. Now, E30 is much cheaper than a 15 or a 10 or nothing, but it's got higher octane and you don't lose all that fuel mileage. So if you would run that, you'd be better off.
You can run the math on that one for yourself.
Yeah, if you're wanting to run a cheaper fuel, do that. But definitely, whatever you do, start with this next tank. Wait until you're down to under a quarter and then refuel it completely and see if it fixes your problem. Because you've got the computer should self-reset, but it needs to see that drop. And it may take a couple tanks at that to do it.
And I will throw out with 122,000 miles, you could have a slight state of tune issue.
Oh, yeah, or the fuel
just for some carbon. Like Russ said, fuel pressure's not quite right, and then it just won't be as efficient on startup as if it had 20,000 miles. No different than when I get to be 100 versus when I'm 20.
And a scanner will tell you what the content of alcohol is. So if you know you've got E15 in it and you look at the scanner and it says 60% alcohol, you know it's skewed. And since E85 doesn't contain 60, it's 55 or right in that area. You know it's way
And then
off.
the vehicle's just going to act a little goofy when it tries to start.
Because it has to add more fuel when it gets more alcohol.
Thanks very much for the call. Good luck. 866-594-4150. Let's talk to Trent. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Trent, what can we do for you?
Hey, good morning. I have a 2021 Toyota Venza. It's got 34,000 miles. I took it to the dealership back in December for a problem that we've had a couple times with it when we'll be pulling off. We're coming from a stop and we're pulling out, and it's like a delay between. It's a hybrid vehicle. I don't know if it's a delay between a hybrid motor in it or the electric to the gas, but you go to push on the gas and it'll stall for maybe 3 to 5 seconds, and then it'll turn back on and you'll keep driving like nothing happened. But we've almost been T-boned a couple times, and it doesn't throw any engine codes, nothing. I've taken it to Toyota twice now, and they told me nothing's wrong with the vehicle. And I guess my biggest concern that I told them is, I understand that the car says it's perfectly fine, whatever, but what happens, when my wife pulls out on her way to work and she gets T-boned because of an issue that I brought to them a couple times?
Yeah, that is not normal. Any car, hybrid, electric, internal combustion, diesel, you stand on the throttle, it's supposed to move. There may be a quarter second delay in someone with electronic throttle, but not enough that it would affect the safety of the vehicle. Basically, you stand on it, you move. So if that thing's falling on its face, you're going to need to get them to see it occur. If they see it occur and they put it down, you get them to put it down on writing on the service ticket that the customer is complaining of this. We verified it when we drove it, and then you take it as high as you need to go, because that is not acceptable in a car that falls on its face. It's not right.
By the description you just gave us, that does not sound right.
And if it's, so let's say it's a 2-second delay when you do that. If that happens and the dealer through the manufacturer says, oh, that's normal. Yeah, they're just designed and some of them do that. That's not going to fly. That's going to be something that's going to get a recall on it. They just don't. Over all the years we've seen cars that have had this type of thing, they've had software updates, they've had hardware updates, they've had component updates, because they are not supposed to do that. But again, you have to, if they don't see it do it, they've got nothing to report other than it's working like it's supposed to.
There are normal internal combustion engines that will have slight delays as they shift gears in a transmission, or you'll get a change in RPM.
But the car's moving.
But the vehicle's continuing to propel forward.
You stand on it, you go.
But if the vehicle is not wanting to move and it's just dying out.
This gives you enough Oops, sorry.
No, go ahead.
This gives you enough momentum as you let off the brake. I mean, it rolls you out into the road, and then you go to hit the gas, and I mean, it just falls on its face. I mean, there's actually no response from the throttle whatsoever.
Yep.
And then it's like it just wakes up, and it's like it's perfectly fine, never happened, you know. And that's the problem is every time.
But they're
Toyota,
seeing
they
it
can't
work.
duplicate it because it only.
Get yourself go for a drive this weekend. You ride in the passenger seat. Just have her drive. You do what you normally do, and you get yourself your video camera on your phone, and you turn it on. And you point at the gas pedal and the car so you can get a good view of it going, or get yourself a GoPro and you get that video of, look, my foot is on the floor and I'm not going anywhere. And then you take that to the dealer and you say, here you go. This has got to be
kind of
fixed.
keep doing it until you get
Yeah,
it.
because this is a new car under warranty.
Well, it's a 21. We got it typed
24?
wrong on the board.
Okay,
it's
21?
a 21 Venza.
All right, then you're in trouble. I thought it was 24. That'd make a big
there's
difference.
something in the state of tune could be off, too, that's causing it to do that.
Because it may have a part failure, but
Yeah.
at least you can, with that, you can see what's going on and go from there.
Because your Prius doesn't do anything like that, does it?
No.
No.
Yeah, no. I've driven a few of the Toyota hybrids, and they're usually pretty solid all the way through the
They're
power
good.
band.
They go right out.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you on the End of the Hood Show. 866-594-4150. Trent, thanks very much for the call.
Get your planner out right now and schedule your next radio appointment with the Motor Medics.
866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us here at the End of the Hood Show. Let's talk to Jay. You're on the End of the Hood Show. Jay, what can we do for you?
I just recently bought an 09 Mercury Milan. It's got 125,000 miles on it, and it runs good, drives good, looks good, and everything. I was wondering, any problems on your radar I should look out for?
Which motor do you have? V6 or four-cylinder?
Four-cylinder.
Okay, and then that's the same as a Ford Fusion. Is if you look at we see things as chassis lines.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times when we're working on stuff or interchanging parts, and so other than the window dressing to make it look like a fancier Mercury, it's the same as a Ford Fusion in the underpinnings. And that age of car, we probably had our most requests for parts for the transmissions behind those four cylinders, and occasionally we'd have the four-cylinder engines that would lose the timing components in the front and kill the engines. But if it's running good, Russ, what would you recommend for maintenance based on what we've seen on those cars?
There's not a lot. They hold up really well. You put spark plugs in them, air filter, keep them clean. Fuel injection cleaning and coolant, just general maintenance stuff. But that's going to happen when you get about that 90,000.
Is that a belt or a chain? I don't remember.
Should be a chain on that one.
Okay, we'd want to confirm.
With every
that.
car, you want to find out, because sometimes you can have a car that comes with a four-cylinder engine, and there's two models of four-cylinder. One has a chain, one has a belt.
Yeah, that one's a 2.5, and I want to think it's a chain also, because those are the ones that we'd have problems when we'd sell somebody an engine. Sometimes they would pull the front balancer off to try to fit it in between the frame rails to insert the engine from the top side without dropping the cradle and everything on the bottom. And as soon as they'd pull the timing or the balancer off, they would turn loose all the timing components
because
inside.
they don't put a keyway in there that you slide on the crank, the lower sprocket for the timing gear after everything's lined up, and then you put the balancer on, you tighten it up, and the pressure holds it in there, which is the dumbest idea I've ever seen, because you loosen the nut just a quarter turn and everything comes out and the motor's done.
Boy, there's a lot going on there that I don't know what you guys are talking about.
We might have went too far with that.
Maybe a little bit.
For a used car that is 125,000 miles, which is actually fairly low mileage for that age, I think that if it's as clean as it sounds like it is, what you said, I'd bring it in for making sure that the coolant has been changed, if it has never been changed, to get a fresh coolant fill in there. Inspect the transmission fluid, and if it's not burnt up or really stinky, do a transmission fluid flush, and have them inspect just the timing components, make sure and double check all that. I think you've got yourself a pretty good car. But there again, it is the age that it is, and there's no guarantees, but that's kind of the stuff that we see.
Does that help you out there, Jay?
You bet.
Thanks very much for the call. Good luck. 866-594-4150. Let's talk to Carter. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Carter, what can we do for you?
Cool. Heck yeah. How's it going, guys?
Fantastic, Carter.
I have a 2000 Dodge Ram 24-valve Cummins, and this truck runs and starts for me every time I drive it, but I live about 15 miles out of town. I drove into town, shut it off once or twice, got to the gas station, and I had a crank but no start. Now, every time I would crank but it wouldn't start, I would reset the glow plugs or the grid heater. I'm curious to why it was cranking but not starting, because on about the fourth try, it finally fired and kept running. So I was just curious if you guys have any
That's a weird one.
recommendations.
That grid heater should have nothing to do with it if it's already been running.
It threw a check engine light. It threw a check engine light. I drove it to work, shut it off, restarted it. The check engine light was gone. I hooked up a little handheld scanner to it, and it wouldn't read it. I'm thinking it's just because the scanner I was using wouldn't read the the diesel pickup. I'm not 100% sure. But it starts every time now, and the check engine light's gone, and I didn't reset it.
Can I ask a question, Russ? Here, I don't. My naivety is going to show here. The resetting the grid. How is he doing that with? You must have a device with you.
Reset the scanner.
You have a scanner
the
with you.
Resetting the vehicle.
So the way this truck's got 350,000 on it. This is the old ranch truck. So the way I have it wired is I have it a key on source, and then I have a push button jumped across the starter to actually start it.
Yep.
Well, when I turn that key off and turn the key back on before I hit my push button, it kicks that grid heater back on and then shuts it off. So I think that's what I mean by resetting it.
Then,
like shut the key off.
That explains a lot. You have a non-conventional truck.
Yeah, that could be the problem right there. If you need to turn the key off and back on every time you crank that, because it's looking for that on cycle before it cranks. So it's very likely that it's getting confused and doesn't know that you're trying to crank the vehicle.
Okay.
So you need to shut that thing off or maybe get the key fixed.
Is it what? Yeah.
So it turns off.
You did that because your key switch went bad?
It had so I want to say it was in the fuse box when I got the truck. It had a crank but no start.
Yep.
So the father-in-law helped me wire it to the starter on a push button, and that we jumped something in the fuse box which made it start off of the push button.
That's what's
I'm not
going
100%.
That's pretty ingenious, actually. In that newer of a model of truck, it's just it's harder to do than it used to be.
Yeah. So that's probably what's going on. You might just have to cycle that key
all the way each time.
Every time, yeah. If it doesn't start, I mean, you can do whatever you want. If it does start,
right. Carter, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. I have to say, all the times that I defend current vehicles and I say that, I make fun of my Uncle Steve for saying he'd never drive a car with cruise control.
Yeah.
The push button starts, I'm leery of them. That in 20 years, how am I going to crank my car if I'm just using the push button? Now, I've had one for 15 years. Everything's fine. It's great.
The thing you have to realize, though, is that the turn key switch was the equivalent of a push button for a lot of years before they actually put a button in.
That'll do it for this hour of the Under the Hood Show. Hour 2's coming up.
You're listening to the Nordstrom's Under the Hood Show with the Motor Medics, Shannon Nordstrom and Russ the Super Tech Evans. Shannon is an ASE engine and parts specialist, and Russ is an ASE Master Certified Technician with extensive factory drivability training. Join the Motor Medics for fun and free automotive advice with real-world solutions to everyday automotive problems. The Under the Hood Show is heard weekly on this and other great radio stations across the U.S. Find out how you can participate in the show by visiting underthehoodshow.com.
With Russ Evans, this is Shannon Nordstrom, thanking you for tuning in to the Nordstrom's Under the Hood Show. Have a great day, and remember, PTLA.
The opinions heard on this program, based on the many years of experience of Russ and Shannon, are offered for entertainment value only and as a guide to your repair needs. No claim to repair or cause is given or implied. Always consult with your own certified technician and follow all safety procedures before attempting any repair. To be a part of the show, call 866-594-4150. Under the Hood is produced by Prairie House Productions. All content is the property of Nordstrom's Automotive Incorporated and may not be used without our permission. Copyright Nordstrom's Automotive, Inc. Now, let's go under the hood with the Nordstrom's Motor Medics.
Welcome to the Under the Hood Show. We are glad to have you with us. Russ Evans is here to answer your automotive questions. Sorry.
Thanks for joining us under the hood.
Shannon Nordstrom is here to do the same.
Welcome, hoodies. Thanks for tuning in so we can help you tune up.
I'm Chris Carter, here to answer your calls at 866-594-4150. You got you got a new look today there, Russ. You don't have the headphones on. You're wearing some earbuds.
Yeah, I couldn't wear my headphones anymore. I got too much hair.
Your hair is too full, and your headphones were always a bit on the edge. They were always extended as much as they could. Right?
Oh, yeah, a big head.
Yeah, me too.
Who's that sportcaster guy that is about my age with the gray hair that's really long?
Well, I'm trying to think. There's a bunch of them.
It's got the gray hair, and it's looks like mine, but it's even longer.
Barry Melrose, the hockey guy on ESPN. That's the first one I think of.
Very good, yeah.
Isn't that pretty good?
That might be the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah, the hockey expert. He's actually going through some health stuff right now, I think. He took a leave of absence from ESPN.
I was just watching the
way
2
to
weeks
bum
ago.
everybody out.
Yeah, well, I always enjoy. I'm not a hockey guy, but I always enjoyed listening to him.
All right.
He was always entertaining. Am I still not helping myself any?
Yeah.
I know you're a hockey guy, so.
Yeah.
We had to stop wearing those earbuds because we had the problem with them, but now
I tried my earbuds because I was so proud of my fake hair that I didn't want to mess it up.
Yeah,
then I tried earbuds, but I couldn't hear anything, and I thought you guys had something wrong with the system.
It did, apparently, because now that it's fixed after those things we found, I was like, I wonder if this is going to work. And these were under my desk, and they worked.
I might try mine again someday because mine were not. I blamed it on wax in my ears plugging the little holes.
That's possible, too.
This is disgusting, this show. 866-594.
People are wondering, he's something.
4150. Let's talk to Tim. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Tim, what can we do for you? Get us out of here.
I was just at Menards yesterday and bought some fuel injector cleaner, the least expensive stuff on the shelf. And I've used it before, and I'm not having any problems with either my Suburban or my Saturn, which Russ told me not to buy. But I was wondering is this stuff any good?
Well, that's three things not to buy. the Suburban, the Saturn, and the cheap. I got to ask what fuel injector cleaner you bought, because Menards can carry some good stuff. No.
Gum out.
That's not my first choice.
It is a mass-produced. It has a chemical compound that has been tested to do some things, but it's not the pharmaceutical grades that we're used to.
Right? My number one is going to be Justice Brothers. I use that in the shop. I use Berryman B12 in the shop. We're happy with those. We've used them for a long time. I'm not going to, if I need to, at this time, pick up the phone and order something from one of our suppliers. I'm not going to call and say I need some gum out to put in there. Will it work? It'll help.
Well, we have different partnerships too, and I know that some of these products end up in their family tree of who owns what and everything. But I'm just going to say, for that price point, like anything else, they're only able to put so much of the certain. I'll just use the word chemicals in there.
Sure.
And down the road, at some point,
cleaning agents might be a better word.
If they change some stuff and we start using it in our shop because we've checked it out
and we've been
found
educated
it
on
to be good and we know about it and it's good. Yeah, I mean, I'd be okay with that. But right now, it's not going to do nothing if you put it in. A lot of people are using it in their lawnmowers and stuff like that to clean out. I mean, I used to use, when I was younger, I'd use the jet spray gum out a lot.
Yeah, that name's been around for a long time.
For carburetors. Now, a lot of these formulas have changed. Justice Brothers had to change their formula for environmental reasons, which everybody did. But they put the time into the research and put a ton of money into getting things that would take the place of the originals to clean and be as good as they've been for over,
I think that the
decades.
The short answer is it's not bad. It just doesn't have the cleaning agent strength as more expensive pharmaceutical products.
Years ago, to be very simple, you're better off spending more to get a better package,
right?
Even though what you bought will work to that degree. It has more.
We're tiptoeing around this. It's a price.
No, but
point thing.
the price difference is worth it in this case.
We feel so.
Right?
But
Okay.
I know people that have bought that kind of stuff for years and they just use it more often.
Yeah.
And there's some of the other ones you can maybe skip uses because it just has a stronger cleaning strength.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, some people don't use any of it, and it's fine, but yet they do have to sometimes do a professional fuel injection cleaning every year or two.
Yeah, or like when they get in and they say, hey, your car's running rough, we need to work on it. What are you going to do? Well, spark plugs, wires, and we're going to clean the fuel system. It's never been done, and it's bad. Where in the other case, it might just be plugs and wires.
And we've also recommended to people that if you're running the E15 fuels, in some cases the E30s, if blends are available, that is also going to have
helps.
Similar, I would say similar or better cleaning effect
to a gum out.
Than the gum out.
Yeah.
Does that help you out there, Tim?
Yeah, I'm just curious, about it. And Russ, I do like driving my Saturn more than I like driving my Suburban.
I'd be the Suburban guy over the Saturn, but
Tim, thanks very much for the call.
Unless it was a Saturn Sky.
The Saturn Sky, that's those work out. 866-594-4150. Let's talk to Mike. You're on the Under the Hood show. Mike, what can we do for you?
Hey guys, I got a 91 Chevy C1500 two-wheel drive 350 short box Sport, okay? Did a lot of work to it. Transmission, motor, the motor, transmission, rear end are all original, 160,000 miles, okay? As far as servicing the transmission, it was brownish, red. I did add, it was a little bit low. I added a bottle of Lucas transmission additive, and I love that stuff. And I went to go down to C10 Nationals, 4L60, I believe, not the E. And it lost everything except first gear, and I made about 300 miles. Is this something that you would rebuild, or would you put a replacement in? Do you guys even carry anything like that anymore, Shannon?
So you went down and raced it, and you broke.
No. Going down the interstate, just going down cruise control about 75, 80.
All right.
Just
300
I was
miles.
actually down by Canton going to win.
300 miles is the exact wrong distance for that to happen.
Have a major breakdown.
You got to bring it back. You can't just ditch it in the ocean and buy a new one, but you also can't call for a ride back. You can't call and have somebody come get you.
I'm pulling it back today.
With this old of a truck, this is in the, well, it's an antique range now because it's over 30 years old, is what you would call it.
Right.
It doesn't seem like it, does it?
No, but it's back
Doesn't
there.
look like it either.
So they made that body style up till 98. We would probably have it rebuilt. A lot of the rebuilders have discontinued that old of a transmission in this Chevy truck, in the two-wheel drives. The big rebuilders like the ones we use. Now, it doesn't hurt to check because there are some of these that they are carrying, because this is still a super popular transmission that was in cars.
Yeah, a 4-speed automatic they use in a ton of stuff.
And if it's a 4L60, not an E, it would have been like in the Impala, in the truck.
Yeah,
I mean,
that would be
all sorts of
It
stuff.
would be before electronic shift. It would have been a normal shifted one.
But the 4x4s, we know a lot of those have been discontinued, and we've been having to rebuild them. You're going to find that the price is going to be very similar between one that's rebuilt in a rebuilding shop locally versus a rebuilder like what we would sell you. The difference is going to be, one's probably going to have a 12-month, 12,000 mile, maybe a 2-year, 24, but the rebuilds are going to be 3-year, 100,000 or 3-year unlimited, and they'll be a similar price because they go mass production down the assembly line. They can keep the cost down and extend the warranty a little bit. So you've always got to look, but also the rebuilding of it may be one of those things. And if you want it built a little stronger, if your engine's a little stronger, then by all means have it rebuilt by a regular local rebuilder.
That's what I was going to say. If you're going to play with this thing and bring the horsepower up, then you can jump into like a
Right now it's just a stock 350, but someday eventually that motor's going to go, and the horsepower's going to
Well, then go with a bigger trans. Because like when I when I did it in my truck, I've got a stock engine of one kind, basically. It's a little bit, but I went with a transmission knowing that down the road I might swap to something bigger and didn't want to.
Did you do like a 4L80 or something like that?
I went with the top Road Ripper 4L80.
Yeah,
it had a 4L80.
And I was also going to say, you can jump into like Summit if you're gonna, and you'll end up spending more money, but they do sell install ready 4-speed automatic transmissions like that 704R that are built for a little more horsepower. But your local rebuilder can do that too. They know these transmissions. The local transmission shops that are still physically rebuilding in their shop, they know this transmission and they can make one.
Mike, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. 866-594-4150. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we got some open lines. We'd love to hear from you.
Make a radio appointment each week to hear the Nordstrom's Under the Hood Show.
866-594-4150. Let's go right back to the phones and talk to Dan. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Dan, what can we do for you?
Hey, I've got a 22 Acura MDX, and you guys have been talking about E30 off and on the show today, and just curious your thoughts on that versus the recommended premium for that car.
Yeah, we talked about it because we had to. Somebody asked about it. Well, so I've got a car I drive, and the only thing that goes in it is E30 because it's available in the pump where I use it. If I drive it out of town, because of the tuning, I'm forced to use premium no matter what. But I go to some states that they do not have E30 available in the pump. If they've got 85 in a pump, I've got to look at it and see what the content is of. So if I know, and sometimes I'll mix it and get the same result. But I've tried that, and when it says 85 in the pump, I've had it anywhere from 30 to 65, and some places you go like in Wichita, and it's actually 85% depending on where you go. So mixing it can be a chore. But 30 is 30 when it's on the pump. They certify it, they blend it, it's right, and it's going to be higher octane. And it's going to be higher octane than the 91 you're going to be able to buy as a premium in the pump, and a lot cheaper. So that's why I use it. So at our shop, every one of us uses 30 in our cars, and none of them are flex fuel, but they're all cars that need to run on premium. We got one with a turbo 4-cylinder and a Cadillac that has to run it. We got one that's got a 700 horsepower turbocharged, otherwise stock BMW with a Chevy engine in it that has to run E85 or E30 at the minimum because of the octane. And those weren't flex fuel vehicles. And we've just had zero problems with doing that. They have not certified any car to run E30. They've certified them to run E15, 01 and up, but they haven't done 30 because it's expensive. But it looks like that's coming down the line because they're going to try. And it looks like, I think a lot of these standards, you're going to see a standard of 15 and even 20 coming out. You saw the jump from 15 or from 10 to 15 a number of years ago. Now we're starting to see that jump where they're going to be pushing towards 20, and you're going to see 30 because the newer the cars get, the more flexibility they have standard built right into the fuel systems to see and adjust.
Would you do it in your 22 if it were still under warranty?
I would myself. Okay.
I would.
And well, Shannon's doing it.
Yeah, I'm doing it with a couple different vehicles under warranty.
That are under warranty, and one of them's more expensive. That BMW is not, but the Range Rover, I think, says right on the cap, doesn't it say minimum 92 octane or something like that?
I've got to think of what that says on that one. But
yeah,
yes,
and it basically says ethanol or regular. You just need to meet that octane. Period. They don't want you running less octane, and a lot of the European cars are that way. But you got to make that decision for yourself because they don't certify it. But I know from running it in mine, I'm just, I've got 70,000 miles on one, no issue with that. I'm not running any more than that in there. 30 is the max.
What about if you get to half a tank, do 30, and then,
No, you just stick with one fuel and stick with it, and then let the car will adjust on the newer ones like that. They're going to adjust, and if you ever have a check engine light, you can't do that.
That's what I was going to say.
The car will tell you.
Yeah, it's not going to cause immediate damage or any damage. It's just going to say, hey, the alcohol content's too high. I don't like this. I can't adjust this far.
Yep, and then you can't run it. you couldn't run that type of fuel in there.
So in Dan's case, he puts E30 in it, gets a tank or two in it. If the check engine light comes on, go back and see if it clears itself out after a couple tanks full.
I would say it's safe to say that we have had, I'll just throw out a number, and it's going to be a low number, but I would say it's safe to say we've had 200,000 cars come through Nordstrom's Auto Recycling that were here because of either wrecks or engine failures or a mechanical failure. And out of all those, we have never had a paper that said it came in from an insurance company where they said, oh, they put the wrong fuel in this car.
The only time we've ever had that
Ethanol.
is a diesel where somebody's put
gasoline in it.
Put gas or water in it.
But as far as car, and we have a lot of mechanical ones come in that says car ran over a curb, ripped the oil pan off, somebody put sugar in the gas tank. This has been damaged, but we have not ever had one come in that said failure because they used ethanol in it and ruined the engine. So I would say that's probably a pretty good thing, and we haven't in the shop either. But yeah, you've got to make your own decision when you're using anything other than a 15, which has been certified. But I know people are doing it.
Does that help you out there, Dan?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'll give it a try.
Thanks very much for the call. 866-594-4150. Let's talk to Les. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Les, what can we do for you?
Well, I tell you what, I have a granddaughter that lives in Florida. She called me to see what I thought. I'm no mechanic by a mile, but she says her Nissan Pathfinder 2014, for a while now, she stops at a stoplight and the thing dies, and that it won't start. She'll sit there and wave traffic around her for a few minutes and keep trying, and eventually it'll start, and then she goes again. But now she says it's also a couple times without even putting her foot on the brake or anything, just cruising down the street, it'll die. And she has to coast to the side of the road and sit there for a while till it eventually, 5 minutes or something, then it'll restart and she can go. Now her dad is not much of a mechanic either, but somebody told him it probably needs a new carburetor. And I told her, I said, I'm pretty sure it doesn't need a carburetor.
Yeah, pretty sure it doesn't have a carburetor.
Right, yeah.
Nissan hasn't had a carburetor probably since 1984 in a pickup.
Yeah, so that one is even less of a mechanic than you could imagine.
Yes, that's right.
The
only thing I could think of possibly like a fuel filter is getting plugged up, maybe.
Possible, but not likely.
Yeah, it would have lower, if this thing has perfect power when it does run, it's not the fuel filter. But if it, it's falling on its face the whole time, yeah, it could be. But I would be more apt to think it was, since there's a time to wait before a restart, I'd be more apt to think crankshaft sensor, something like that. Or a computer issue. But if the crankshaft sensor gets hot, the circuit opens, the engine dies, it cools down a little bit, fires back up, goes. Then it dies again. So if she finds does it die every time she drives it?
I think so.
Okay. Ask her if she drives it and it dies every time she goes, but she drives it, let's say 10 miles and it dies. And then she gets it restarted after 3 to 5 minutes. And then she goes again. Does then it go 5 miles and dies? And then she waits another 5 minutes, cranks it up and goes. And then she only goes 2 miles and it dies. If it gets shorter every time like that, and then she finds herself having to wait a half hour before it'll get her where she's going, that's really likely like a crank sensor, because what'll happen is it's already warmed up, so it fails even sooner the next time.
Les, does she tell you, if you said this, I didn't connect, that there's a check engine light on in the vehicle now or not?
I believe she said there has not been a check engine light on.
Okay, so that, there's a couple different things that could be, basically in the base system. Could be losing fuel pressure, but Russ is on to things. Here's what I think I would do. She's in Florida. You're trying to help her. In that area, she's going to probably find an AutoZone store in Florida, and go talk to them and ask who their wholesale shops are that they deliver to that work on, this is a 10-year-old vehicle already, that work on Nissans and or Toyotas or that matter, drivability problems. And as long as they can replicate it on every trip, I think that she'll find somebody that'll be able to help her get fixed out. But bringing that into a big city dealership with a inconsistent problem, I just would get nervous about that if they don't get the right tech team assigned to her project. How's that? Is that a good way to say that?
I think so, yeah.
But that would be a good starting point, I think, and then they can find out and put some test equipment on it. As long as they can duplicate it, this can be figured out pretty quick.
Les, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. 866-594-4150. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you on the Under the Hood Show.
My car does that thing. You know, that thing. Under the Hood has the answer you're looking for.
866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us here at the Under the Hood Show. Don't forget, you can watch the Under the Hood Show on our YouTube channel. And if you subscribe to the YouTube channel and join the Hoodie Fan Club at underthehoodshow.com, you could win a hoodie.
Like Pat Mulrine. He did it. Congratulations from our friends over at Universal Technical Institute and everybody here under the hood.
866-594-4150. Let's go to Nebraska and talk to Tom. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Tom, what can we do for you?
Hello, guys. I have a 2004 Chrysler Sebring. It's the base model, cheapest one. It was it's been in the family since it was bought new. Literally driven by a little old lady. But unfortunately, she had a grandson who thought that she needed a remote start and maybe keyless entry because it didn't come with that. Short story is my grandson is now driving this car. And for the last several years, it's had a problem where the battery goes dead over a period of time. Starts good otherwise, but gradually the day comes when the starter spins over slowly, and then finally it just clicks. And you take the battery out, which is very difficult because it's underneath the left front fender and the fender well. The moron who came up with that idea deserves an extra hot place in hell, as far as I'm concerned.
It's there to to protect the engine computer in a crash.
Yeah, that's what we always joke about.
Yeah, that sounds
they
about
stuff
right.
them up there, but
I'd like to hear the reason for sure.
It's room. They didn't have any room when they built it. They stuffed everything else in there.
I've been looking for some way to move it up to make it more accessible, but so far I haven't come up with anything.
They make a trunk relocation kit for it where you can run the cables all the way back and put it in the trunk. I've seen a few of them done that way, but those cars go dead a lot because they were, they were parked a lot. A lot of time they were midlife Chryslers for a lot of people. They'd buy them, especially the convertible, and then they would go dead and they come and say, my car goes dead all the time. I was like, well, it's probably the battery because you don't run it enough. No, I put a new battery in it. When? Well, last year before I parked it and it went dead 7 times over the winter. Then the battery is junk. But we also put a number of alternators on them. But as far as other things, I can't remember that we ever have found anything on one of those cars running a battery dead, other than like if somebody stuck a radio in it or some aftermarket accessories under the dash running it dead.
Well, they said they put a remote starter in it.
Disconnect it all all you have to do is unplug the fuse. You don't have to rip all the wiring out and have it reinstalled, but take the fuses out of everything. There could be 5 fuses in those systems. But try that in a new battery and see if it still goes dead. And make sure when they put the new battery in, the charging system is working.
We've thrown a lot of parts at this thing already. It's had a new battery put in every year. It's got a Die-Hard gold battery in it. Now, maybe not the best one we could buy. Could get the
well, if you put one in every year, the odds are you're getting at least one good one.
Does it sit though?
No.
Does the car sit for a couple weeks, not running?
No, it gets driven. He drives it to school, just 1 mile every day.
That's not enough to charge it. 1 mile is not enough to keep a car charged. It will go dead if you're an older one like that.
Well, it's driven more than just that, but that's the
okay.
Yeah, because the energy that you use to start it and kind of get it going, it's a push probably if you're just driving to the mile, and
especially if you got
to get back into
radio going and a heater fan going and wipers. Sometimes it won't charge, but that's important. But you've got to check the charging system too and make sure it's putting out the proper voltage and amperage to charge it, because it may be weak.
What else have you thrown at it?
It's got a new starter. We've checked all the connections, obviously the cable connections. It's got a new alternator, and we tried putting in a different PCM. They're very expensive. I don't know if you can even buy them from Chrysler, but we bought one online and stuck it in there, and that didn't seem to help. We've taken it to a couple of shops, even a Chrysler dealership, and the first problem we had was with this PCM that we put in, the fact that it was used. They either aren't able to reflash it or aren't willing to do that, and I don't know what the situation is in that regard, whether we've got any options for getting a PCM, and I don't know myself what role the PCM plays in the charging system on this vehicle.
It's got full control over the alternator for charging, so it needs to work. But again, you'd find that in your first simple test of the charging system with a charging system tester. If you're watching that meter, it'll tell you if the car is charging or not and at what rate it's charging. If it's charging low, you've got to find out what that problem is and fix it. Now, that can be, if I put my tester on and it says I'm only charging at 12.2 volts, and if I turn all my lights on, it's not charging enough, I can go to the back of the alternator with a voltmeter and test it and see if the computer, that PCM, is sending out the pulse width signal to it to tell it to charge. If it is not, I've got a bad computer, or the computer is not sensing the proper voltage. It is not reading what the battery true voltage is because we got a bad connection or something. That's possible. Now, if it does show that it's sending full signal to that alternator to charge and it's not charging, then that alternator's junk. It's just not, it's like, hey, I've got the full throttle and we're not going anywhere. You got a problem there.
And if the alternator was holding the voltage regulator, or the computer was telling the voltage regulator to engage and it was pulling power when it was sitting, you'd probably drain the battery a lot quicker.
Yes.
That draw will typically, right, Russ, will take it down quite quickly, and the alternator would be physically almost warm to the touch.
In a few hours, it'll run it then.
If you went there and caught it at the right time, because it's still trying to do something and the car's not running. But that would be a very fast draw. That would be in amps probably when you measure the draw. And so I would unplug that remote starter if you haven't done that already.
And on a car like this where you're having issues with the charging system, when it comes time to replace that battery, we would suggest an AGM battery. And one of the reasons for an AGM battery is because it will put up with deeper cycles for a lot longer time. So what happens? You run an AGM dead, you charge it up, you're good. You run a lead acid battery dead and recharge it, you've lost half of your reserve capacity, which means if it could go, let's say at 10 amps, it could go 3 hours before it was so low that it wouldn't start the car. Well, now it can go an hour and a half. And the next time you run it dead, it can go 45 minutes. And then it's going to cut it down until you open the door. And after 2 minutes, it's dead.
Yeah.
So your reserve capacity goes away. So an AGM battery will help you with that issue.
Tom, thanks very much for the call. Good luck.
Once again, unplug all those aftermarket accessories. Just temporarily and see if that changes anything.
That's the draw. 866-594-4150. Let's go to North Carolina and talk to Ed. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Ed, what can we do for you?
Hey, guys. Yeah, I have a 2009 Nissan Titan SC 5.6 liter auto transmission. It just jumps out of gear, just neutrals, every now and then. Otherwise, the transmission is tight. It pulls fine. It's not slipping. It just jumps into neutral. It does it mainly at 40 to 45, but there'll be some times where I'll come to a stop and it'll, well, what I'll do is when it jumps out of gear, I'll throw it in neutral, wait for the RPMs to come down before I put it back in. But sometimes it doesn't go back in. I'll come to a stop and it'll just be in neutral the whole time. But what but most of the time, otherwise it's fine. But I just don't know where to go with this. And I've been into 3 different transmission shops. Everybody wants to build it, rebuild the transmission. So
Yeah, if they're not, because they can't discern what the exact cause is, so they know the way to fix it is to take it out, tear it down, find the problem, rebuild whatever's weak in it, and then they've got a good transmission. There is no easy way to find out exactly what's causing that. They would have more time and to try to take it apart, look at the valve body, put it back together, and it would just waste money. And they don't know, because of the age, they don't know if there aren't any other worn clutches or components in there already.
And the reality is, unless I'm totally missing something, or that 09 still has a physical cable hooked to the valve to switch the transmission.
No,
it's put it into gear. You mean
it's not a cable?
You don't.
To put it in gear.
You put it into gear.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about, is putting it into gear.
Because a lot of the newer cars they've went to where they're doing it all electronically. But in this case, unless somebody was physically moving the lever, it
shouldn't go into neutral.
Something inside is saying, I can't take this pressure, I'm going to neutral, or it's automatically in an electronic valve body saying, I'm going to open this valve when I'm supposed to open this valve, and it's confused.
Mm-hmm.
But if they watch that, Russ, if they watch that on a scanner, they should be able to see what position the indicator's in,
right,
and what is happening inside, correct?
Right, because if it says on the manual lever position indicator in the trans, if you're reading it, if it says neutral, yeah, they can go into neutral because it says we got an issue here. It's in neutral, but it's not physically taken out of gear. So put this thing into neutral. That could happen, but they'd be able to see that on a scanner if it acted up while it was in their presence.
They'd have to have it there again.
There's going to be no codes, but if it acted up in their presence, that's what you would get.
I do have a code, 744 torque converter circuit or solenoid. Lockup solenoid.
Yeah,
but it's intermittent.
So if they're getting that, then they're concerned. What they're concerned with there, a pump problem can cause that as well. So if I see that code and you tell me it's jumping out of gear, I'm going to say, hey, let's just rebuild this because we probably got a pump issue, and it's probably got a valve sticking in it, and it's losing pressure, and that's why it's going into neutral.
Ed, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. 866-594-4150. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you on the Under the Hood Show.
Right now, and schedule your next radio appointment with the Motor Medics.
866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us here at the Under the Hood Show. Let's go to Missouri and talk to Don. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Don, what can we do for you?
Well, I have a question maybe to build upon, ask for some expansion on the ethanol blendings and the compatible octane ratings that may be with those. I travel up that way pretty regularly, being a native of up that direction, and I see some E20 and E30 at certain of these truck stops, convenience stores, and whatnot. But they never seem to put an octane rating on those. Is there any range that those typically will be? And just full confession as well, in my mid-90s F-Series trucks, I have occasionally burned the E20 with no effect on mileage. They run fine. I track every gallon of gas I have. I have since the mid-70s when I started driving and all. But do you have any insight on that?
Yeah, so the reason that you sometimes and often, depending on the model of car, you do not see a change in fuel mileage when you run higher blends. It's because the octane's going up. And a lot of cars are actually losing fuel. Now, octane itself won't do a thing at all. But if you've got a car that's losing performance because it has too little octane, the car is turning the timing down and adjusting the fuel curve, saying, this is poor quality fuel. We can't run full timing or we're going to have detonation and ruin the engine. So when you're running that octane, people are like, why am I getting better fuel mileage with 20 than I was with nothing? I shouldn't be, because everybody says I should get horrible mileage. But with the 20, that could be anywhere, all over the board, because typically you'll see that the more ethanol blended, the lower grade of fuel that the fuel companies will tend to put with it, because they're getting their octane from the higher blends, which means that they can use the lower grade fuel, still get the decent octane, and save money. But they'll put on the pump, a lot of times you'll see it rated at like 88, 87.
I'm with
on
Don.
the pump.
I never see the octane on the 20s and
And
30s.
when you get 20 or 30,
Yeah,
20 and
30
30.
will typically show 88.
Well, they have
but
to.
the
because-
E20s and 30s never do.
Yep, they have to because it's certified in cars for 01 and up, being that the other ones are for
Full
flex
disclosure,
fuel.
I'm dealing mid-90s Ford trucks. One is a six-cylinder 300 that has had the compression raised a little bit, so I do tend to run a higher octane on that anyway, and that does take any ping potential. And I didn't know if there was any problems going to E20. I've not tried the E30. But the other thing I've done for a number of years too is I've added a Marvel Mystery Oil to the recommended rating, and maybe there's other additives as well to help restore what I perceive as some of the lost lubricity with the higher levels of ethanol, even at 10. Is that? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, because of I stay away from because of issues with catalytic converters and stuff. But I don't know whether you've got one or not, and a lot of the older ones could put up with a lot of heavier oils and stuff, and even oil burning in those without any damage or clogging up. But anything that's flex fuel rated, and those are, since they're not certified for use in cars 2001 and up, anything above 15, they're not going to label it with an octane rating because it's a flex fuel, and the content of it can change and vary. They're not as strict. Like the E15 is 15. E85, we've seen it as low as like 44 to as high as 80, 85, depending on what state you're in. So they can't put an octane on it because it's flexible.
Okay.
It's like
what
our
would
floating
be a rule
brakes.
of thumb for an assumption, perhaps?
Over
maybe up
100,
in, particularly in South Dakota.
Where we're at, over 100 for E80, E30 is what we see. Like
No, I was thinking
to be
Russ,
safe.
I was thinking about the E30 was like 94. I was told.
Yeah,
or something like
to
that.
be safe, 94, but we've seen it over 100.
We could be talking a little bit out of school here on this one, on the
Yeah.
actual octane rating, but it's what I have learned and been told by friends in the.
I've
in the
never
know
seen less than 94.
Is that
testing.
it's always going to be, and I hate to use the word always with anything because then somebody finds your exception and calls you out, but it should always be higher than the octane rating in the premium pump that's right next to it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's why they don't put the label on it, because they can vary in it. But when you get into an older vehicle, we've already had issues with fuel lines because of the age. When you get going way back, like 2001 and older, and you run it in higher content of ethanol, it's a great cleaning agent and it's a great solvent. So if you've got older lines already, like if I use carburetor cleaner and I would try to clean out my carburetor on my lawnmower and I'm spraying out the fuel lines, I've developed leaks in those because of the age of the hose. So you definitely want to upgrade your rubber components in a fuel system like that to run, and even run an E15 or 10. I'd be, it's time because of age just to put a new rubber line on those things.
Don, thanks very much for the call. Good question. 866-594-4150. Let's talk to Tony here on the Under the Hood Show. Tony, what can we do for you?
Well, I got a 2015 Chevrolet Suburban, and I just got this really weird intermittent problem I just can't seem to find. Idling speeds randomly, stop sign, stoplight, whatever. The engine seems to start to shake at like a low RPM. Sometimes it'll go away. Sometimes it'll be there until a full tank of gas. Sometimes it'll be there right after you fill up, and it'll go away right away. I can't seem to find the issue. I've done the lower O2 sensors. I've done a high-pressure fuel pump. Last time I had it in, they did tell me that the fuel injectors were running the way they were supposed to, so I'm just not sure where I should go now.
How many miles are on the Suburban, and what, I guess, have you had any check engine lights that have come on in conjunction with this?
There was. So I've had this intermittent issue for quite some time now, and I just can't seem to find it. But yes, there has been codes on it, and I'm sorry I don't remember the code, but to me, I think it was the rich code, like a P102 or something. Does that sound familiar?
And how many miles? I don't remember all the codes.
170,000 miles on it now. And it's been like this, I would say, for at least 50,000 miles. Sometimes it won't even happen for 6 months. and then sometimes it'll happen,
What if there's
randomly.
a valve hanging up?
Well, that could be. Does it have a long crank, hard start sometimes too?
Right before I took it in to get the high pressure fuel pump, it did take a little, like it took just a little bit longer to start. But once I put the high pressure fuel pump in, it didn't do it anymore.
You might have a valve problem. We're seeing more and more of these. They've just started popping up within the last year.
This is the LT1, I believe they call it now.
Yeah, we've had a number of them. We've had to pull heads and put valves in them. They were sticking. They got carbon on the backside and they hung up, or the valve kind of tulip shaped. And as it rotates, it'll seal up in some positions, and other positions it won't, and it'll give you a rough idle. And it can give you some,
for sure.
can give you some misfire codes. But off idle, it's fine. Down the highway, it'll work perfectly fine every time. But at
Down
idle,
the highway,
it's
it
rough.
runs great. Yep.
Yeah, that could be what's happening, and almost every time we found it on the driver's bank, second cylinder and third cylinder back on the driver's bank. Those have been the ones that we've been seeing the most failure on valves on. That's number 3 and number 5, and for whatever reason, those two. But I think it's got something to do with the heat of the engine, the way it's running. But it's because they all should be the same. All cylinders should be the same. But right there is where we tend to find them. That's where we find the Dodge engines when the cams fail. It's on those 2 cylinders too, for whatever reason.
But if you're looking at the thing and you got your check engine light and you know what it's for, and they're saying, hey, I've got normal inject, because that's got a high pressure injection right into the cylinder. It's a direct injected engine starting in 2015 in the Suburban, I believe. Correct? It's the newer one.
Yep. Exactly. Yep.
And so that is crucial. If one of those injectors is not right, but typically they're like either not working or working.
We have had a number of problems with the seals on the direct injectors on those engines.
There you go.
If they're ever pulled out for any reason, you need to put a new seal on it and have it resized and put it back in. It just sounds harder than it is. There's a little cheap little tool that snaps over it and resizes it. You put it back in, but it can be put in, and then within a month it can develop this little leak, and it makes it at idle. It runs rough. But he's got a rich code.
If that's what it was, yeah.
I'm thinking he's got a valve that's hanging open a little bit, and it's got unburned oxygen and fuel going down there, causing it to show as rich. So a misfire could cause that.
What do you do there?
You've got to pull the head and put valves in it. So it means a teardown. Those engines are actually easier to tear down than you think. Quite a bit easier than a lot of other ones, but they would have to be taken apart. But the first thing I would do is to start running some injector cleaner in the tank. The good stuff, not that cheap stuff we talked about earlier.
Right.
And see if it's carbon that's causing that, because carbon will get very thick on those and cause those valves to hang up. I would say professional fuel injection system cleaning on those engines where they clean the backside of those valves. It's a once a year thing on those for me if I'm driving one, because it's an issue.
Tony, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. 866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us here on the Under the Hood Show. That'll do it for this hour of the Under the Hood Show. Sunday is Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day to our moms.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And thanks for listening to the Under the Hood Show. Don't forget, you can watch the Under the Hood Show on our YouTube channel. If you do and you subscribe there, you can go to the Under the Hood Show website and sign up to be part of the Hoodie Fan Club, and you could win a hoodie. And we appreciate you listening and watching the Under the Hood Show. And that was a long 40 seconds for me there. Did you hear me?
You did.
Trying to get through that 40 seconds.
You just talked a little more deliberately,
Yep,
and you added a few words here and there, and
fumbled a few things to add a little time. That was on purpose. I misspoke on purpose just to eat up those.
Brought to you by
Servants. I
could have put that in there.
That's what I missed. Brought to you by Sturdivants. The Under the Hood Show is brought to you by Sturdivants. There.
Now it's there.
Yeah, now it's there. A lot of fat good that did me. Let's talk to Dave. Dave, you are on the Under the Hood Show, on the after show. Dave, what can we do for you?
Hi, guys. How you guys doing?
Good.
I got a problem is I got a 2004 Dodge Durango. About a year and a half ago, my service four-wheel drive light came on, and I had a transfer case motor or the four-wheel drive accumulator put on.
Okay.
And it's been about a year and a half, and now the light's starting to flash off and on. And it was doing what it was doing before I had the first one put in. It was kind of whenever you took a left or right turn, the left wheel would lock up, because you could hear it dragging, screeching. So now it's on permanently again. So do I need to put another actuator on, or the motor, or do I need to lean towards the transfer case itself?
Is that wheel still locking up?
It just every once in a while, it only seems to lock up when I turn left or right. It's kind of, you know what I mean, like kind of a sharp turn. It doesn't do it when I go straight ahead.
You got to check those axle shafts in the front and make sure the joints aren't binding up in them, or you got a wheel bearing issue going on, because that'll cause all sorts of weird stuff to go on in there. Check that first. And if you're using the four-wheel drive and it binds up during a four-wheel drive event, it could damage an actuator in the front end, the differential, the transfer case, the shift motor. Even if it's trying to pop that thing out of four-wheel drive, into neutral or something, that could damage it. So find out what's causing that binding first in the front, and then address that transfer case. But wouldn't surprise me if you need another transfer case motor. They're a higher failure rate item.
Yeah, I got a lifetime warranty one, so I just matter of taking it out and getting it replaced. But you think I need to check the bearings on the front axles then?
No, the bearings, but I would look at the axle joints real close. We'd get it up off the ground, turn it all the way to one side, and rotate the wheel by hand and see if you can feel where it's binding. And then you can usually tell if you're turning it and you feel the axle shaft and you feel it kind of jump in there, you'll know what's causing the binding.
And that could make it trigger that light again, or have damaged something to hurt the actuator.
It could have damaged something to hurt something in the transfer case, to where the actuator's not dropping into every gear smoothly, so it's not lighting the light when it's in that position.
Because it just doesn't have a true reading that I'm confident this is where I'm at.
Doesn't know where it's at.
Dave, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. 866-594-4150. Let's talk to Irene. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Irene, what can we do for you?
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call.
You bet.
I have a 2016 right-hand drive Jeep Wrangler, and I feel like I'm dragging an anchor or a dead body or something.
Yeah.
It winds up to like 3,000, 3,500, 4,000 before it wants to shift.
I would check that first on the anchor and the dead body, because you'd hate to bring it in.
It's probably a mailbox or two.
It's been doing this for 6 years, and they're like, well, this is why. And you would want to do a visual inspection just to make sure.
Well, it's funny. I got less mailboxes on my route today than I did yesterday.
He's just pulling them along.
I think even that, with that Jeep, you would not feel like you were having to go to 4,000 RPMs to drag mailboxes around.
Right.
Unless they're made out of crankshafts or something like some are. But rural mail carrier, I'm assuming?
Yep, 150 miles a day, probably stopping 400 times.
And does it matter whether you're running bad weather in four-wheel drive or good weather in two-wheel drive, or I shouldn't say four-wheel drive, Jeep, what are you doing with your shift selector?
It's two-wheel drive.
Okay.
It's just started this about a month ago. Our excellent mechanic, who has taken care of the post office for several years, knows a lot about our right-hand drive Jeeps. He just actually changed the transmission fluid. Wanted me to try it a couple days, but it's still the same. The transmission fluid, my understanding was like a 8 out of 10, good condition.
That's good.
That's interesting because my first indication was that you were having a transmission problem. You still could be, but it may not be a catastrophic problem. It might be a communication issue.
Does this thing have does it have a lot of power and just not shifting, or it just feels like it's dragging and it's also not shifting?
No, it's running good. I have no light. It's winding up too far before it shifts.
Okay. That shift
It
is
doesn't
controlled
miss.
by a number of things. He'll be able to scan it and see, but if it's got an issue where it's not, it's got to read the mass airflow sensor, and determine what the load is on the engine, and then the RPM, all that's read through the computer, and then it tells it to change gears. So it's going to be one of those things where, yeah, it probably should have been changed with the age and stuff on it and being the use that it's getting. Now the next step is going to be, because the fluid looked good, finding out what's controlling this transmission and how it is. Is the throttle position sensor reading correctly? Is the mass airflow sensor reading correctly to tell the transmission, hey, we're at the point where we should be shifting here? Is the load right? If it thinks it has too much load on it, it's going to go higher RPM before it shifts. And that's one of the things they can find out with, looking at the mass airflow sensor and throttle position sensor.
If it runs this way all the time on your route every day, I know we say this probably way too much and people get sick of saying it, but if it's doing it all the time and he's the regular mechanic, I would think he would be wanting to steal this for a day from you and put his scanner on it and go out and just simulate a...
Are you kidding me? This is a postal vehicle. She needs it every single day.
I know.
It's not like she has a 98 Buick LeSabre for a backup.
We have an excellent mechanic. We bring it in to him at 7:30, and by 9 he's got the brakes and all that changed.
That's
and
awesome.
ready to go, so we can go.
But maybe he can take this out with the scanner connected.
Really, really great.
He needs to take this out with the scanner connected to it, so he can watch the live data to see what's happening when this happens.
It's going to take some time.
So it'll take him. If he's committed to doing a brake job before you need it, he can sure do that before you need it. You'd have to
read it, but finding it could be a different thing.
Exactly, but at least he can find out where he's going to look and have his initial diagnosis getting him close.
Does that help you out there,
Even
Irene?
when I let up on the gas, you bet. Even when I let up on the gas, it slows down quickly.
Oh, it doesn't shift. If you let up on the throttle completely, if you take off down the highway and you get up to like 40 miles an hour and it's still in first gear, just revving up, and you let off that pedal completely, if it doesn't shift right into the next gear, then it's usually inside of the transmission. So you've got a solenoid or a valve body issue going on in that transmission, because when you let off, that load now goes to zero, but it should see the RPM of higher going down the road and shift right away. So that's a good test right there, and a good thing. I mean, it sounds like it's stuck in a lower gear. It could even have a problem with the manual lever position switch on the side, saying it's stuck. It's in low when it's in drive.
So it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't know what it doesn't.
And
know
he
what
could
gear
read
it's
that.
in.
Yeah, it could think it's in low, so it's trying to hold it in low. That's a possibility too. Some things to check.
Irene, thanks very much for the call. Good luck.
So last week we ran your first episode ever, Chris. May 1st,
May 5th.
May
Yep.
5th be with you, right?
Mm-hmm.
After the 4th. And so May 5th, 2005. Some people said that is awesome. It's great. Other people didn't notice that it was an old episode.
Right.
And then still others said things like, hey, you talked about this in your show last week, and that's completely wrong. It's because it's a show from 20 years ago.
Right.
We things have changed and we'd say it different. And then we had one who said, hey, you talked about a water car in your last episode, and it was one that got 100 miles per gallon. It was in an episode of X-Files. What was the episode number of that? It's like, you think we're going to remember something from 20 years ago? Well, it was season 1, episode 4. The name of it was called Like Water for Octane. It had the Lone Gunmen in it, which were awesome if you ever had them in a show. And they were searching for a car that the government had killed the guy that made the car because it had a special carburetor that would allow it to run on water and get 100 miles to gallon. And then, of course, they buried the other people who found it. So I don't remember how we'd remember what that was. But anyways, yeah.
He just wanted to drop that on us.
Yeah. 2000
the whole reason of that story.
2005. It was a great episode. If you have not heard it, look back. It'll say Chris Carter's first episode. This is one from 20 years ago.
And it's just audio.
Yeah,
right now.
it was fun that Chris said, hey, let's pull an old episode from that long ago and just throw it up. But it was remarkable how it sounded similar to now, other than the things in the episode. We were talking about things, how we thought they would catch on or wouldn't, and what they were going to have to do. And it's still a great example there, talking about electric cars and some issues. 20 years later, same thing's happening.
Mm-hmm.
They have not moved forward with that. Lots of different things in there. It said something about, some guy said, "Oh, I never pictured Russ for a Topaz guy." No, it was not my Topaz. It was my wife's car. It was okay car, but I have never owned a four-door car that intentionally.
That was the nicest Topaz ever.
That was a beautiful car.
Had
Beautiful
the best
car.
paint job ever.
And then I sold it, but it was the wrong color, but it was a beautiful car.
I know.
But I did sell it to one of our customers who drove it another 100,000 miles until it rusted out completely.
You know, I never thought of this till right now. But my wife had a Mercury Topaz before we got married.
Was it green?
I don't remember, but she bought tires from me and never put them on. That was how we met.
Okay.
And
she had Topaz in the Fiero.
So your wife had a Topaz too.
Yeah, it's one
we
of
have
the
way
things.
too many similarities.
Yeah.
My brother, I can remember this. My brother got a Tempo.
Yeah.
Because he told me he's my older brother, and I can't remember if we got together if it was for a wedding or what, but he got a really good deal on it.
I always told people to skip a beat before they bought one of them.
He got a really good deal on it because it was a new model, and so they were just trying to get him out on the street. So the salesman really recommended this Tempo because he would get a really good price on it because it was new, and they just wanted him to get out there. They were going to lose money on this Tempo, but he was so happy to get my brother in it that they were willing to lose money so they could get it out on the street. And I was 14 years old, and I went, "You're an idiot." It was the first time I was ever smarter than my brother, I thought.
It
I
was
was
a
like,
bad car.
No, but
all.
he didn't
need it.
No, it was fine, but he didn't get a deal on it because Ford decided to put him out there at a loss.
I don't know. There's a lot of cars that have been put out there at a loss.
I was officially not allowed to unload transports of cars anymore after I dropped a 94 Tempo with like 800 miles on it off the top of the transport in the wintertime. It nosedived. It went from a rebuilder to a parts car really quick.
You get Tempo, Topaz, Chevy Cavalier, all of that age, like we're talking like 88 through 92.
By the way, he traded his Tempo in for a Mercury.
Yeah, ours was a 4. First time I saw one of those XRotties, I called it. I said, "Oh, look, an XRottie." No, it's a XR4 Ti. We had gone to see Tiffany at the local mall, and
I think we're alone now.
And as we left, it was sitting in the court, and boy, in the 80s, a brand new XR40. That was a cool looking spaceship of a car for a very young teenager who had just got done.
What was the other one they made? The Mercury
Scorpio. That was what my brother had. And it was that Scorpio, at the time he got it. Oh man.
I got lost when you talk about Tiffany, a 16-year-old kid and Tiffany, and what were we talking about again? The Tempo. The Tempo.
That's right.
That was a long time ago, guys.
Yeah. I took a Mercury Scorpio in trade when my wife private sold her 95 Mazda MX-6 coupe. She had bought it new and owned it a couple years, and then we sold it. But to get it sold, we took a private trade on a Mercury Scorpio. Resold it right away. But
the Cavalier, the Tempo, the Topaz, those were like bulletproof cars. If you got one of those, you could deliver pizza in it. You could have a school kid drive it. You could beat the crap out of the thing, and it was tough. It would just go.
The only thing that broke on them was the temperature control.
Yeah, I mean, the engines wise though, they were great. I'm talking about the non-overdrive, just the 3-speed autos. They would get you all over, and they got okay miles per gallon, but they were really tough. The next thing was if you wanted even tougher, you got yourself a full-size Chevy Caprice or a Ford LTD or a Crown Vic, big car, just a boat. And then you got overdrive, and then you could really cruise. But those were tough. And then newer wise, I know we had a listener that called us and asked about what would be a great car. And the newer equivalent is going to be something like a Chevy Cobalt with the Ecotech in it with a timing chain, no belt because they had chains in them. Those cars were pretty solid cars too that you could use if you're a food delivery person and you just want to beat up a car to you change the oil in it and keep driving it. Something tough. And there's just not a lot of that around anymore. You're going to buy something, it's pretty cheap. It's got a timing belt. I'll just drive it till it blows. Well, it will if you leave that belt, but you don't want to spend $1,000 to put a belt in it.
Hey, just buy another one.
Yeah,
they buy them cheap and they buy another one.
So it's getting harder to look for those. And I think it's because there's more technology, guys. There's more stuff to break. There wasn't a lot. Why did a XR4 Ti and a Scorpio break as much? Well, they had all sorts of technology that the car wasn't ready for, that wasn't good enough. These turbos on these little cars, they weren't made. They weren't designed to last. They were designed to be cool and be a hot seller, and then people would drive them hard and they blew them up. And they had fancy digital screens that, well, they worked when they put them in. They didn't work a couple of years later.
Yeah.
They had issues with that. The DeLorean was a beautiful design of a car, but it broke. I've got a couple friends who have them now, and they're always replacing stuff that breaks on those things. The cooling systems can't keep up on the little cars, the DeLorean, lots of different things. Technology that we have now almost perfected. You got a car now that's like a 1 liter with a turbo, and you're getting 200 and some horsepower out of it, and they last 4 to 5 times as long.
How much was the DeLorean when it was new?
You'd
That's
have
a
to
great
Google
question.
it, but I
will.
believe
Look
it was.
that up.
I believe when it was brand
30
new, like
grand?
in 1981.
25 grand?
No. In 81, I think it was.
Am I way off?
I
think
think
it
it
was
was $9,400. Look
No.
up an 81
No,
DeLorean.
25 grand. I'm
Hold
guessing.
on a second. The
No,
DeLorean
I
was
want to think it was
super expensive.
I think it was under 10 grand. That's my opinion. Is I think it was under 10. You're going to find out.
I'm gonna say it was way more.
First time I saw one was at a local Kmart in Livonia, Michigan, and it was on the curb, and they had at a Kmart, they were promoting it, but I want to say it was like $99.99 on the window.
What year was that?
81.
Because it
DeLorean Motor Company.
when I put in new and DeLorean.
No, they got a new one out now, so you got to look at original price of a DeLorean.
What was it? 84? Did you say?
81.
81.
Is this an adapter? Should this pull apart?
No, not on those headphones.
Oh, okay. I was trying to pull it apart. I was
Siri,
going to try my head.
what did the original DeLorean sell for?
25,000. It was 25,000 in 81. It went up to 29,825 in 1982.
Although the original
34,000
design
in
concept had a target price of $12,000, the DMC DeLorean appeared on the market with a retail price of over $25,000, making it
Way to
rise
go.
to
I
over
nailed that.
$34,083. Okay, so they wanted it to be 12 grand, but it was 84. So I'm way off at
But
10.
25 to 35 grand is what I was thinking, and that's a lot of money back then.
The Corvette was 16,000.
That
the
is an
year it came
insane
out.
amount of money back
That's
then.
what I remember. I remember it being super high, a friend of mine's dad had one, and we were not allowed to drive it or touch it. So we only did that.
You can buy one now
so
for
I-
like
so I
$35,000.
never was-
So
I-
it's
I
a bargain.
never drove it or touched it in the daylight. It was only when his dad was asleep that we were ever in that car.
Every time I've ridden in one of those, I thought I rode in one that had a V8 conversion, and it was a nice car. But all of the 6-cylinder cars were, to me, clunky, loud, loose. They were too light. They
I
just
have never
didn't-
rode in one.
They just didn't. They weren't what for the car. They should have. My opinion is they should have built that for $34,000. They should have built that car with a V8 right from the beginning. If they would have built that thing with a Chevy V8 or a Ford V8, I think more along the lines of that Corvette, they probably would have got a lot better deal. And then of course, it went the way of the Tucker, but even worse when the owner got buried into everything with John DeLorean and what happened there. But the new DeLoreans that they've built, which is a whole different thing, that's a whole different car. But that's a nice car. That's a nice ride. They've done it the way of the supercar and made it nice. I've not had a chance to ride in one. I've seen videos of them, things like that. But
Is he making you nervous over there?
I don't know. He's pulling wires, and
I'm looking for an adapter so I can test my earbuds.
there might be one in that right-hand drawer
Aren't your
next to
headphones
Chris.
with an adapter? Your headphones are.
No, don't pull
That's-
that
I
off.
tried pulling
That
that
does
apart.
not
Russ
come
said
off.
don't do that.
That's a 1/4-inch jack comes with it. But in that drawer over there, there's another set of No, they do not come off. That is not an adapter. Those are 1/4-inch headphones, Chris.
Okay.
That is part of it. Yeah.
No way.
Yep. But the other,
It feels like it should come apart. I
the
tried.
old set of headphones has an adapter down there. Don't pull it off. You'll break the cord.
I'm not pulling anything.
Down in the drawer. Nobody's going to the drawer. He wants an adapter and he's not looking. That's where I got mine a couple hours ago.
That's
Bottom drawer, top drawer.
Top drawer, I think. If there's a set of headphones, one set has an adapter, and then there's an adapter laying in there. You can tell the adapter because it's got a little black line on it and it pops off.
So do gold ones. I have gold ones too.
But these don't. This is how the headphones get
Chris
broken.
wants so bad to
Give me
try
that.
to take his apart.
Give me that.
What?
No, I'm just kidding. Mine are. I don't have the same headphones as you guys.
Where are the headphones I got you, Chris?
These are the ones.
Those are the H.
See, I
sometimes it is
This
you.
is live on the air.
Those are HD 280s.
Bickering like grumpy old men here.
I'm looking at it.
Yeah, these aren't
Get
the
off
same
my
as
lawn.
these aren't the same as his.
Yeah, those are HD 280s. You're wearing them. I'm looking at the tag on the side right
Well,
there.
his plug is different than mine, so one of us has an adapter and one of us doesn't. Because I don't have the gold.
These must still have earwax in them.
Now Chris is like, it's broken. You
Yeah.
can't hear anything?
Not-
Other than
not real
burp, burp,
great.
burp, burp, burp.
No, not really good.
That are they plugged? Have you cleaned them?
That's what I said. The earwax situation.
If you put that in your mouth, I'm going to throw up and leave the room.
Yeah,
I was just about to suck on it to clean the
He's
end
done
out.
that before.
Don't do that. Not now.
Well,
Take,
you guys
put them
talk
in your
so-
pocket.
you guys
Don't,
talk so I'm off camera.
God, jeez, don't. I don't want to. I don't even want to think about it.
You got to be careful. I have to edit the show like I did last week after
Clean
the
every day.
comments.
Yeah,
you
no
should-
kidding.
You didn't have to edit that out.
Oh, yes, we did.
All right.
They're not. This isn't going to work. These maybe I just got some junk headphones or earbuds.
Yeah.
You could get some of them
Actually, I paid,
Beats by Dre or something.
I paid quite a bit for these. Actually,
That's why mine were like $20 and they sound awesome.
this isn't bad. Maybe
Is it bad? Is it good?
I might go back to it and try it. Talk some more, Chris. You want to talk once?
Yeah. This couldn't wait till we were done with the after show.
We had to be talking. This is what I got here.
I don't know why, but people love the
Them look okay.
whatever.
Extended bass.
Wait, yeah.
Yeah.
That's like
Had that
Benji.
happen fishing the other day.
Benji got one the other day. He said it was really extended,
Yeah,
and I
it's a
said,
big
"No,
old
that's
bass.
a 12." And he says, "No, it's like a 28." Just joking.
I bought them on Amazon. I want to say I paid.
People
over
like
$100
the
for 'em.
after show. I don't know what it is, but they said I like the after show. I was like, all right, I like the regular show too, but the after show.
You know where we started off here on this after show? We had 2 callers.
Yep.
And none of those callers had anything to do with anything we're talking about.
No.
And then Russ brought up his pride of making us know that he is an X-Files expert.
Mm-hmm.
Told the story. And then we
talking.
got back into that era and we haven't left. And then
Right.
I tried to bring us back by accident because I was going to test these headphones while we were talking.
We were talking about the tempo.
Yeah.
How did we get
Tempo,
on that?
We
the
came a long
Topaz.
ways.
Yeah.
Is that bad? Maybe
It's so many cars. So many cars.
You should try cleaning them too.
I did. I took the little end off.
That's just part of it. You gotta.
Do I have to suck on them?
No. You clean them. You get some isopropyl alcohol.
You don't want to damage the audio portion
Yeah.
of the.
You get some of that that sticky stuff. I have the paste or whatever it is.
Earwax?
I don't want to put paste on them.
No, there's a dust thing that pulls out all the earwax and stuff. It's like a
Like one of them little suction cup
rubbery.
things?
No. Yeah, like a nose thing for a baby. No, it's
A turkey
like
baster?
like a clay, like a pink stuff. Where you
I
put
have
it
no
in.
idea where you're at.
Clay bar. You use it on your car to remove rail dust and.
No, it's like that. Is
this a radio thing?
No, not at all.
What else would I use it for?
Nothing. You'd use it for dust to get rid of, like detailers would use it to pull dust out of little places. But you can buy like.
Do you have one?
I have a pack of it. It comes in a pack like clay, and it's got little squares that you.
The clay part is throwing me. I just don't. I'm not.
Yeah, it's I can look it up. It's super
Brings-
common. Us young people use it, not old fogies like you. Apparently,
I think I'm used to now that I've had the headphones on for a long time. I'm used to that extra bass
Yeah.
and the noise canceling
I know
type
exactly
thing.
what you mean. Yeah.
It's kind of. I sound really whiny and tinny, but maybe I am.
That's because the headphones block external sounds out.
I know.
And these do not.
I got some
so-
Bose earbuds that are so good noise canceling. I just love them when I put them in.
So if I talk really quiet like this and hide the microphone, then
It's
it
kind of
sounds
amazing.
better, right?
You can put them in even without.
Hi, this is
really
Dirty Boss
playing,
at the
and it just-
fairgrounds.
Russ is
I'm
better.
going insane.
Yeah, you're in the middle of all this. Did you find your clay dust Magnet.
There's a lot of AirPod cleaning kits.
What's our vector, Victor? Stop calling me Shirley.
I'll bring some in for you.
Yeah, 2 weeks. I'd like to see that.
Yeah, you're going to be gone next week.
Yeah, I'll be
right?
gone for a couple weeks. Let's see here. Let's.
Silly putty. Use silly putty to clean your
Yeah,
headphones.
that
That's what he
would
said.
do it.
That's what it's like.
Thanks,
It's
Doug.
like
Is it like Silly Putty?
Yeah, kind of.
I have not touched Silly Putty in 20 years.
But you did remember Zapper is the name of the hand buzzer. That was the brand, the Zapper.
AirPod cleaning.
You
I
wind
said
it
Joy
up.
Buzzer, and you looked at me like I was crazy.
But
and
you said Zapper, and that is a brand of...
I was using Zapper as a verb at that point.
Not as a
noun or a thing.
A proper
Yeah.
noun. Yeah, it's cleaning putty.
Cleaning putty. You got a picture of it?
Yeah, sure. How is this so hard to... Yeah, right there.
I don't know.
Oh, get out of here. This is the worst after show ever. We're done. Although, did you hear the story? I'm going to throw this out there. This will
About a man named Jed?
This will bring an end to it. Because the guy died. Shannon, you love to jump on jokes with the guy died story. In Massachusetts, a guy died and he went off the road, and they don't know how long it was there, a couple hours. And when they went to get him, they realized a bear had found him and pulled him out of the car because they found the body outside the car, not in the trajectory of
Was
where
he
they
dead
expected.
before or after?
They think he was dead before, and
Oh.
then the bear went and
That wouldn't be so bad.
dragged him out.
Real story?
Real story. Current.
I really thought you were going down
No.
a joke angle here.
Current. Yeah, I know. And
That's bad.
There's no way to. It
wasn't a cocaine bear, was it?
There's no way
There-
to make it.
There's a
good
series that we watch. My wife and I watch on Netflix. The
If
American
I waited
season.
a year, we could laugh at it, but it happened.
It's called Ghosts.
A few days ago.
And it's the American version. Then there's Ghosts UK, and they both have a bear. They have similarities of where they write it, but the American one's kind of fun. Well, one of the dead ghosts, as they go through the seasons, they show how they all died. And one of them, the hippie pot smoker that did a lot of drugs in the 60s, Flower, says, "What happened to you?" And she's got these marks on her neck, and she's like, "Oh, this? Well, after Woodstock, or whatever, I wanted to hug a bear. He was so cute." It doesn't work good. And then they actually showed the scene of how it happened.
Oh.
It was horrible. So when you said hug a bear,
Mhm.
and then we started
didn't
watching
say
the
hug a
UK version. I tell you what, getting into UK humor is hard. We've got
Huggy
like
bear.
Stephen Lee
Captions
from
would have to be on
Ireland.
for me to really enjoy
He's
it.
one of our hoodies from overseas, but we have a lot of people in England that listen to the show, and it's like we don't get your
Till
American
today,
humor.
till
Yeah,
now.
I don't get the. But after watching it, we watched the first season, and then you totally get into it. You get used to it. It's kind of like Doctor Who or something. But it's like
See
the
what you
things
missed
are
last
so
week, Doc?
different.
Doug, you missed it all.
Fun time for Doug.
Here's the earbud cleaning putty. You don't have to put your headphones on to hear.
He
to
doesn't
look at
clean
the-
his fuel injectors. Why is he going to clean his headphones?
And then you can like shape that and stick it into the ear things and stuff, and it pulls off all that screen.
That looks like the adhesive for command strips. That's
How
what-
many
exactly
people
what it
try
looks
to
like
use-
Funtac.
I'm going to clean my ears out with it. No, do not do that. It's for headphones only, not for.
That's fine.
I've seen that and didn't know what it was.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, these sound so much better.
Yeah, they do. There's nothing like a good set of studio
this-
audiophile headphones.
This is a big difference. I don't have to max it either.
You
to
look
hear
like
it.
the guy sitting in the chair with his hair blowing. Is it live or is it Memorex?
All right.
Dun,
All
dun.
right.
I'm done.
out.
I'm done testing.
Thanks for watching the after show.
Brutal.